Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Mate in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Man alive, at this stage of the game you wouldn't think it could get more interesting. This is going to be a continuation of this book, The Occult and the Third Reich. The Nazis, National Socialism, Hitler, World War II, searching for the Holy Grail. Crazy stuff in here. But then again, everything else I research is kind of crazy these days. So this will be series number 88, part 2. I did go up to page 21. Christian relic, pagan relic, and I'm going to skip, but I did read the Cathar phenomenon. That would be the Cathars in southern France, that apparently the Roman Church went on a rampage to wipe them out. Apparently they held some ancient secrets, and in one of their murderous rages, I grew up Catholic, I believe in Jesus, but the Catholic Church wanted to eliminate this pagan cult, Gnostics knowledge, and one of the cliches was, just kill them all. Didn't matter if they were into the paganism, witchcraft, or Christians, or atheists, or anything. They said, just kill them all, and let God sort them out. He'll recognize his own. And then the Grail, the neo-pagan relic. These are the things I'm going to skip over. I did read it all, quite interesting, and I may come back to it. I'm sure in other books we'll get on these topics. The Book of the Key, The Mysterious Mission, Atlantis and Hyperborea. That's an interesting topic there. We all are familiar with Atlantis. I wasn't that familiar with Hyperborea. Apparently on the North Pole, around Sweden and Norway, all that Nordic region, the land of Odin or Thor, an ancient religion, giant men. Supposedly some kind of supreme divine gods, according to this stuff. The theories concerning the creation of the world. Where I am going to jump to is the Gnostics' knowledge, or supreme knowledge, page 69. This book is falling apart, so I can just take away a bunch of pages, set them over here, and take the part I want to read out of this book. That's how bad it's falling apart. Here we go. To know his beginning and his becoming has always been the unending yearning of man. To know his beginning has always been the unending yearning of man. It is to this most fundamental need that Gnostics addresses itself. The Greek word Gnostic means knowledge. To achieve integral knowledge of the world, of its material and spiritual end, is the purpose of the Gnostic questionings. It is not given to the masses, you and me, however, to penetrate secrets of such magnitude. So they don't want us to know about this stuff. Hence, they get initiated, and under threat of serious death, horrible death, they're not to divulge those secrets to the rest of us. It is not given to the masses, however, to penetrate secrets of such magnitude. before he can have access to the arcana of the supreme mysteries. Man must go through stages. Sometimes I get warmed up in my speaking. Man must go through stages of initiation, each on a higher mystical plane than those preceding, without which it would be impossible for him to understand the teaching finally given to him. In these conditions, revelation shows itself to be the privilege of the initiates alone. On the other side is the common pistis, or belief of the masses, of the ordinary faithful. So that's what they call us, the ordinary faithful. Illumination for the Gnostics comes from the knowledge of a book of superhuman origin. And I'm only reading my highlighted portions. We call, or one can call, Gnosticism, and also Gnostics, any doctrine or religious outlook based on the theory or in the experience of the gaining of salvation through knowledge. So for Christians, if we believe in Jesus, we can gain salvation. We will be saved. He died on the cross for our sins is the Christian teaching. It says here, Gnosticism, any doctrine or religious outlook based on the theory or on the experience of gaining of salvation through knowledge. For the adepts, the initiates, of exotericism, magic secrets, Gnostics appear as the source and very cornerstone of all the religions, their purpose being that of bringing about the liberation of man through absolute knowledge. So they want to liberate man through absolute knowledge, but only their initiates get to learn the knowledge, and the rest of we, the masses, are not allowed to know the knowledge. On the philosophical plane, Gnostics offers something entirely new. It affects the synthesis of Eastern and Western modes of thought. So that would be around Asia, all that from China to Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, to the Western modes of thought, Germany, England, Italy, the East and the West. The East yearning for deliverance, the West yearning for salvation. In this fusion, metaphysical knowledge is the handmaiden to man's mystical impulse, which carries him to the very summit of universal hierarchy. In fathoming this persistent tendency to return to the cosmic sources, we have endeavored to go back as far as possible. So apparently they want to go back to the cosmic sources, the source where our spirits, our souls came from. They feel, from my research here, and you'll see further on here, that to be born in these material bodies is like being imprisoned. So hence they say ascension, and everybody is embracing ascension. So basically to ascend, you would have to be released from these physical bodies, i.e. killed. Be made dead. Guess we should thank them very much for wanting us dead. So we can go back to the primordial source. The primordial source of every Gnostic appears to be in the Brahma religion, known through the sacred books of the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita. According to Nazi thought, which in this particular case exposes an old notion already expounded upon by theosophy. That's Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine. Seems to be the religion in Albert Pike's Moral and Dogma. And a lot of similarities with Aleister Crowley, the evilest man alive, his book, the Book of the Law, Do As Thou Wilt. Hence, liberation from the Ten Commandments. Just me adding a little extra there, putting it all together. This was the first step forward taken by mankind after the destruction of Atlantis. The German expeditions to Tibet in 1937 and 1943 had for their mission the discovery of a connection between the vanished Atlantis and the first civilization of Central Asia. For Eduardo Schor, the esoteric author of The Great Initiates, the Brahma religion and civilization represents the first stage of the post-Atlantean humanity. In simple terms, this stage was the conquest of the divine world through primordial wisdom. The conquest of the divine world through primordial wisdom. So do they want to conquer God's world, the divine world, through primordial wisdom, ancient wisdom? The great civilizations which followed, Persia, Chaldea, Greece, Rome, Egypt occupies a special place, the Celto-Germanic world, Germany, etc., represents the moving forward of the white race. The idea which impels and guides all of the great religions and civilizations is that of the conquest of the earth through the application of the divine revelation. Conquest of the earth through divine revelation. According to this theory, primordial intuition, following the fall of Atlantis, increasingly weakened as speculative philosophy advanced, particularly in the Aryan race, in proportion to the development of its own faculties, those of religious observation, analysis, and reason, from which comes the notion of personal freedom and of liberty. Personal freedom and of liberty. And again, I'm reminded of those billboards of this group called Freedom from Religion. And the other logo I've been noticing is Faith No More. Hence we forget Rabbi Marvin Antelman, the leader of the USA Jewish Congress, in his 2 books, To Eliminate the Opaque, Our Belief in God. Meanwhile, the soul's hidden capacities do not get lost among mankind. The soul's hidden capacities do not get lost among mankind, but it is to an elite. It is to the elitist, the secret controllers of our world, that belongs the responsibility of bringing them out and developing them in secret, safe from corruption, outside influences. So the elitists of this planet have these souls, the knowledge of the soul's hidden capacities, and it is to these elites that belong the responsibility of bringing them out and developing them in secret, safe from corrupting outside influences. Hence they call we non-initiated people, the Mason types, Freemasons, Illuminati, profane. Of course, the Zionist, Talmudic, Jewish folks call us goyim, cattle. And H.G. Wells called us animals not to be trusted. And we know they're trying to build a police state right now, and they want to microchip everybody with the mark of the beast, 666, to restrict all people's movements and opportunities, enslave the people. And those they don't kill off, that they don't need. I just like to be plain spoken about this stuff. which is not what the evil side does. They want to beguile and deceive, to cheat and lie. Truth comes from God, and I believe Jesus spoke the truth. Which brings me to another interesting conversation. A video today, and I'll be brief about this and expand on it later. But apparently, and I was watching other videos, so let's give credit where credit is due. I did not discover it. I only discovered that people discovered this. So they think. Probably wondering, what are you talking about, Rick? Talking about something in the Bible that says in the end times, or at some point in time, the lion shall lie down with the lamb. And if you go look up on Yahoo's image site and type in the lion and lamb, you will see many pictures of the lion laying down with the lamb. And apparently this is quoted from the Bible. It even says in there, Isaiah 4- this or whatever, the lion shall lay down with the lamb. Alright, now we know we have CERN. Hang on here. And apparently they're opening up time portals. I've gone over the Philadelphia experiment. Jacob's ladder with Mike Morehouse, I think, who jumped through a Jacob's ladder. The 2 arcs of electricity on the poles. And apparently could figure out how to time travel. Project Montauk at the end of Long Island, where they were developing these magnetic portals, electromagnetic portals, even abducting young boys and pushing them through, not knowing where they were sending them. And whales popping up on the fields in Kansas, apparently, in my theory, lightning bolts, perfect synchronicity somehow, caused a portal in the ocean and transformed the whale. History is full of time travel. H.G. Wells wrote a time travel book. The Time Tunnel or something? Time Machine. So apparently, part of this beguilement and deception is much more sinister and high-tech than people can possibly imagine. Because if we go look in our Bible now, it says, the wolf will lie down with the lamb. Look into this, don't believe me. So a lot of people are raising their eyebrows going, wait a minute. How did they change all the Bibles all over the world? Obviously somebody had to go back in time. But for some reason it didn't affect the pictures that reference this Isaiah in the Bible reference and other things. For example, even in Luke or something, it mentions banks and people's stuff. It uses the word stuff, S-T-U-F-F. They didn't use the word stuff back then, and they certainly didn't use, Jesus didn't use the word bank. Put your money in the bank. So apparently somebody has some technology, so it seems, to go back in time and rewrite history. And don't believe me. Go look it up. Look in your own Bible. I went and got my Bible today, and it says right now, the wolf will lie down with the lamb. But if you go on the internet and search wolf lying down with lamb, you're not going to find a history of pictures. You're going to find a history of pictures and people quoting the lion lying down with lamb. How powerful are these Satanists and magic? And CERN with the statue of Shiva out front, the goddess of destruction, 666 in the logo. All these things I've been talking about. How powerful are they? What's it got to do with HAARP microwave transmitters, spraying heavy metals in the sky, putting arches of Baal, goddess, the devil, 1,000 of them coming out of UNESCO, out of the United Nations organization, these arches all over the world. Like, reminds me of the Stargate series. Are they going to have all these 1,000 portals all over the world that become interdimensional portals of beings coming through? I'm just asking. Why are they putting these? Why did they do 911? Build FEMA camps. The government ordering 30,000 guillotines. 450 the military and government hollow point bullets they purchased. George Bush, Kissinger, the Pope, Gordon Brown, Blair, everybody calling for a new world order, one world currency. So finishing this page, it is the elite's responsibility of bringing out these secret souls, hidden capacities and knowledge, and developing them in secret. That is the reason for initiation. The energy developed by the concentration. Again, the energy developed by this concentrating of the spirit, our soul, concentrating of the spirit. Think about yoga and other kinds of meditation. Instead of its dissipating itself through the entire universe, soars towards a single point. The solar verb, which is the logos, animator of the planetary system, and spiritual quiescence of the physical sun. The revelation of Zoroaster in earliest Iran is the first stage in the phenomenal growth of the mighty civilizations of Persia and Greece, and in the vast migration of the Aryans towards the west. So this might explain a little bit about why Zionist Israel wants to destroy Iran and Syria. And who controls Zionist Israel? That would be the Illuminati, Luciferians, Satanists, Freemasons, Mystery School of Babylon cults, many names, Rosicrucian, Jesuits, Kabbalists, many. We've gone over that. Moving on, Zoroaster and the religion of light. In the heartland of Central Asia, at the foot of the Palmyr and Hindu Kush mountains, at the roof of the world, lies a turbulent and wild country, Iran. The green of the oasis alternates with the arid deserts in this region of extreme contrast. So here's a description of this vast region. Nature has arranged Central Asia like an immense stairway, whose top she seems to have reserved as the place of honor for the cradle of our race. Huh. Now we know why Israel wants Iran's land, like they've taken all of the other Middle East land after killing millions of the inhabitants from Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Egypt, Yemen, all over there. North Africa, almost entirely. Between the Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf and the Black Sea, the land gradually rises, enormous summits placed in tiers, just like gigantic steps. This property in Iran. The Taurus, the Goryeo Mountains, the Laristan chairs lift up and support the provinces. The Caucasus, the Elbrus, and the mountains of Schutz and Iceland add a colossal tier which is even higher. Well, I'd like to go see that. This enormous platform, whose majestic plains extend to the Solomon and Hindu Kush mountains, so all the way down to India, ends in one direction in Turkestan and at the threshold of China. That's a lot of territory. Go look at a map of Iran. And on the other, at the banks of the Indus frontier of the world, no less vast. The dominant note struck by this nature, the feeling which invokes above all others, is that of an immenseness and of mystery. I wonder how many people knew that. Such was the land adopted by the early Aryans, which was the home of Zoroaster, the first of the great initiates known to us. So initiates, another word could be called prophets. Some people call Jesus a prophet, who was initiated into this spiritual knowledge or magic that you could do with healing. Get it? The knowledge of God's world, the spiritual world. Just adding my 2 cents in there. So the first of the great initiates, Zoroaster, to us who would found a religion of grandiose principles. So the religion of Iran, generally, of Zoroasterism, started in Iran. At the time of the birth of Zoroaster, about 4,500 years before Christ. So that's 6,500 years from now. And ancient Persia was inhabited by Aryan tribes, black-haired Caucasians, white people, whose lives were dedicated to growing the sacred wheat and raising great herds of beef. They worshipped fire. But for several centuries, another race had been invading the land of the pure and the strong. The hereditary enemy, the Turanian, member of the yellow race with slanting eyes, expert horsemen, pillagers, to pillage, destroy the village and rape the women and take all the money and whatever else. So they were pillagers and nomads. The Turanians seemed inexhaustible, prolific. Like the Iranians, they worshipped fire, but in its crudest manifestation, a demonical and cruel form. They offered human sacrifices. Here we go again. This religion, the mystery school of Babylon, gateway to the gods, Illuminati, Talmudic Jewish folks, the Bohemian Grove in California, which Alex Jones snuck in and took a video, a gigantic owl named Moloch with a fire in the belly they throw a baby into, called the cremation of care. The Mayans sacrificing witchcraft, witches' covens, all over the world, have satanic rituals. They have to abduct somebody and sacrifice them. Hitler, in his diary, Rabbi Marvin Antelman wrote, that I've gone over in previous videos, is they abducted a young gypsy man in Munich, Germany, laid him on an altar and sacrificed him to bring forth an interdimensional being to impregnate a girl on an adjoining altar to form some kind of super race. Apparently the being appeared, according to Rabbi Marvin Antelman's book, which was in Hitler's diary, but they failed to impregnate the young girl. And here in this book here, they offered human sacrifices and they worshipped fire, delivering up their victims to 2 monsters who had survived from prehistoric times, the pterodactyl, whom the priests had made the symbols of their cult. In this invasion, the Iranians were overrun. So the Iranians were overrun by the yellow people with slanted eyes, and both of those 2 groups of people worshipped fire. And so the Iranians took refuge mostly in the mountains when they were fortunate enough to escape falling under the victor's yoke. So the Iranians were actually able to go up to these high steps in elevation and all that to escape the invading yellow people with slanted eyes, the Turanians, way back then. It was during these unhappy years that there was born among the mountain tribes of the Elbrus a child of royal lineage named Arjap. After an adventuresome youth spent in hunting buffalo and harassing the Turanians, the young man had a vision. Already some years earlier, a seer, a prophetic person who can see the future or something, had predicted to him that he would become a king without a crown, but mightier than all the other monarchs, since he would be crowned by the sun. So Arjap withdrew to the mountain, where he received initiatory teaching from a patriarch by the name of Vohoman. So he went someplace to get initiated, to be taught the secrets, according to the legends. From this moment, he took the name Zoroaster, or Zoroaster, which means star of gold. Star of gold, or splendor of the sun in Persian. The sun priest Vuhumana, possibly the inheritor of the secrets of Atlantis, instructed his disciple and made him the apostle of Aurora Mazda, the god of light of Iran. According to the fragmentary Farsi writings, Farsi is the language of the Iranians, which have come down to us, it was at this time that Zoroaster conceived the theory of two worlds in opposition. Aurora Mazda was the principle of good, and Ahriman, god of the Turanians, who worshipped the darkness, was his opposite. So they had a god of good, Ahura Mazda, and then the opposites were the Turanians, who worshipped the darkness, and this was the god of bad, who propagates the cult of the serpent. Here we go. They worship a serpent and arouses envy, hatred, and tyranny. Wow. Zoroaster emerged from this trial victorious. So he became a hermit and went to learn and be initiated. And he emerged from this trial victorious. During one of his visions, Ormazd, the power of light, some kind of god, Ormazd. This was in Albert Pike's book and Helena Blavatsky's book, The Secret Doctrine and Morals and Dogma. So this, his vision, Ormazd, the power of light, appeared to Zoroaster. Certain contemporary writers interpret that this means that Zoroaster was visited by creatures from outer space, described as having the form of angels. We've gone over that, we're going to go over that again, and unearthly bodies. So don't be deceived by this UFO and alien stuff they're trying to tell you now, like the Disclosure Project and other things. We're going to go back over those topics after we read all this and kind of merge the two together to try to get at the truth. Zoroaster came back down among his people, converting his own tribe. He spread the sacred word throughout Iran, preaching three principles which are at the heart of his creed: purification, work, and battle. Amplified, this meant purification of the soul and the body through prayer. They don't want you to pray. Rabbi Marvin Antelman's book, To Eliminate the Opate, is your praying to eliminate the opate. Faith No More, the logo they're getting out there now, and freedom of religion. And here, this guy, if you want to strengthen your soul and your spiritual self, prayer. And fire worship, tilling the soil with the plow and extracting the sacred essences of the cypress, cedar, orange tree, and fighting Ahriman and the Turanians confounded in their world of darkness. As he was about to die, Zoroaster, like every great initiate, had the prescience of his people's future. He saw splendid nirvana in the form of wild buffalo trampling underfoot the neighboring peoples who attempted to oppress the pure Aryans, triumphant Babylon in the form of a serpent spouting fire, repelling the attacks of the Orsmond eagle, and apparently repelling the attacks of the winged lion the symbol of the Persians and Medes, descendants of the Aryans, marching victoriously at the head of an innumerable army. Remember, this is a vision of Zoroaster. Descendants of the Aryans, marching victoriously at the head of an innumerable army. But suddenly he saw the magnificent lion, chained into a ferocious tiger, which began to devour its own young, spreading desolation and death to the heart of sacred Egypt and to the sanctuary of the sun. If this vision did take place, it is of uncanny accuracy. Indeed, history was to work out accordingly to the plan glimpsed by the apostle of the sun. However, in spite of his gifts, Zoroaster lacked a cosmology, a universal vision that was to be brought by Manes, another initiate. Manes and his school. Manes, the Apostle of Light, was born in AD 2016, so 216 years after Jesus' birth, according to the Persian Chronicles. His existence is known to us through various writings, the most important of which are the Acts of Achilles, who was bishop of Kashgar in Mesopotamia and had philosophical exchanges with Manes. Descending through his mother Miriam from the Parthian dynasty of the Arsacids, Manes or Mani was a Babylonian by birth but Iranian by blood, and by his aristocratical lineage. He found his religious inspirations in Manism, a sect of uncompromising believers to which his father Pitek belonged. Remember, these are some of the foundations and beliefs of the Nazi occultists. All this fits together. At the age of 24, he had a great revelation. He had a vision. Breaking with his father, he claimed to be the heir of those already sent before him: Buddha, Zoroaster, and Jesus. So this guy said he was the heir to their teachings. After a voyage to India, Helena Blavatsky went to India, who learned all she knew and then wrote the book The Sacred Doctrine and formed the Theosophist Society, which apparently now controls the United Nations, who through UNESCO is also spearheading the New World Order, gay agenda, etc., and trying to destroy Christianity, and apparently promoting all this transgenderism, multi-versions of humanity. And in this book, later on, we'll see why. After a voyage to India to be initiated, where he received the learning of the Brahmins, Manes went back to Iran to teach his doctrine. Isn't that what Helena Blavatsky did? She went to India, the East, and came back to the West and created the Theosophist Society, along with some others. Apparently, the missing years of Jesus, I have a book named that. He went to the Tibetan mountains and did some studies and came back with some apparently unparalleled skills like healing and casting out unclean spirits and demons. The new religion, called Manichaeism, after its founder, benefited from the protection of King Saphur of the Arsacidid dynasty and related to the family of Manes. But after the death of this king, the Manichaeans began to be persecuted. Power had passed into the hands of the Sasanian dynasty, and the young monarch Baran, one who hated Manes. Arrested, thrown into prison, and loaded down with heavy chains, the prophet died on February 26, 277, after 26 days of great agony. Legend has it that he was flayed alive, after which his skin, inflated with air, was hung at the gates of Sataspion. So they flayed him alive. They cut his skin off of his bones while he was alive. Manichaeism remains the most persecuted religion in all of history. This notwithstanding, the growth of the sect was prodigious. Toward the west, Egypt felt the impact of the new doctrine in its Christian communities and in its pagan schools of philosophy, as did Palestine and Rome. In the east, Manichaean belief spread as far as China, where it had a phenomenal success until the time of Genghis Khan. The 4th century saw the heresy firmly rooted in North Africa. St. Augustine was a Manichaean from AD 373 to 382, Asia Minor, Greece, Illyria, and as far as Gaul and Spain. In the 5th century, Manichaeism receded before the persecutions of state and church and withdrew into the shadows during the following century. In the 8th century, however, it fathered the Paulicians of Armenia, and then the Bogomols, predecessors of the Albigensians and the Cathars, within the Gnostic movement. A religion which enjoyed so much success deserves a closer look and reflection on its doctrine. You think? Manichaeism is radically different from Christianity, even if certain writings are shared by the two religions. The first and principal dogma of Mainz is that of the two principles, the good and the bad. In this he was in agreement with the Buddhists, the Persians, and the Christians. But he made the confrontation go back to the very beginning of things, and he did not accept the fact that the world was made from nothing. According to him, an eternal matter had been created by the good principle, and bad principle constantly fought with the good for possession of it. The world was created by Christ, that is to say, by the divine essence infused into his creations. In time, the victory of good would be complete, and all things would be purified. The last doctrine is precisely the same as Zoroaster's, concerning the final victory of Ormuzd over Ahriman. All right, moving on. Although Mainz was not a Christian, he acknowledged Christ. However, he did not think he had taken on human flesh, but had been born or had suffered. So he did not think he had taken on human flesh, or had been born, or had suffered. That is why Theodore is correct when he says that the Manichaeans called Christ the Son of the world, that for them Christ was not the body of the Son, but that he was in the Son, as Father of the inaccessible light. So people don't believe there's a God. They don't believe there's a devil. They don't believe they have a soul. So a lot of people tell me. And I do know a lot of us do believe. But we don't know what this occultic, magical, witchcraft, Illuminati, Zionism, Jesuits, Kabbalists, occult, i.e. what I call sum up in witchcraft, magic, world is all about. So I'm reading these books and doing these videos, so maybe we can get a slight hint. I don't think we'll ever actually figure it all out. Alright, this is what St. Augustine also states. In this also the Manichaeans were pure Zoroastrians, and could accept in a mystical way the cult of Mithras. We're going to go over this in this video, which was widespread at that time, the cult of Mithras. Mainz did not think much of the prophecies of the Jews. He found they contained many errors. he made diverse accusations against the ancient patriots, and found that even in the dialogue, the religion not of one God, but of many. These Manichaean statements can be questioned only with difficulty. However, if we know the doctrine of Manes only through his detractors, it is the fault of the Christian Church, which destroyed all of his manuscripts. And I am aware through my studies that the Christian Church went out of its way worldwide to destroy all evidence of all ancient religions, including when they invaded Mexico, Tucumán or whatever was the big city. It's where Mexico City is now. They beelined it to the Shama's hut. Got a bug here. Got all the mystical shamanic secrets. Killed him. Proceeded to start killing the natives and stealing all the gold. We could say they probably did that from North America, Central America, South America, Africa. All over the world they went. Library of Alexander was burned down. So it is a battle for knowledge. But as we are aware from the secret mystery schools of Babylon, all the Illuminati Freemasonic type cults, Zionism, Jesuits, etc., etc., etc. Bohemian Grove in California where they threw a baby in the fire. Bilderberger groups, Club of Rome, Kabbalists, witchcraft covens, I don't care what they are. They're into this stuff. And they don't want us to know about God, believe in God, or pray because they know it's powerful. So that should be a hint to the rest of us. It can nevertheless be said that Manichaeism was a Gnostic religion, was a religion of knowledge. So what do they know? What secrets? What magical things? What abilities? It's kind of darning or damning to the rest of us if there are forces out there, peoples, entities, who have superior knowledge that can destroy us without us even knowing it. Bugs are attacking me today. Manes himself acknowledged ties with two major Gnostics of the 2nd century, Marcion and Bart Beardson. But the doctrine of the Apostle of Light, with its initiatory hierarchy and its dualistic conception of the world, which is at once a theogony or cosmogony, cosmology, reveals itself through a universal knowledge concerning things divine, celestial, and infernal. Wow. So divine would be in the God's world, celestial would be in the heavens, and infernal may be in hell. All transcendent realities, as well as physical phenomena and historical events, find their place and their explanation in this knowledge. As in the first Christian Gnostics, Manes recognizes an intermediary world which comes between matter and the Spirit of God. So in this material I'm going over, there are a couple assumptions we can make. They continue to talk about the fact that we have spirits and souls. They continue to say that there is this other dimension, this other reality, these other creatures, these other entities, that some of them call gods. They continue to have prophetic visions or visitations of these things that will happen in the future, the past, or God's telling them to do something. Over and over, when I'm going over this material, this stuff pops up. So Manes recognizes an intermediary world which comes between matter and the Spirit of God, the Father of grandeur. This world is made up of superior hierarchies in the image of the cosmos, the best known of which are the angels, there we go, the archangels, there we go, and the eons, whose existence, at least as concerns the first two, is recognized by Christianity. So angels and archangels. So all this secret mystery school of religion type stuff, my name for it short, William Cooper used that in his videos. The Mystery School of Babylon. Look up William Cooper, Bill Cooper. He wrote the book, Beware of the Pale Horse. Worth reviewing. I've watched many of his videos. The Manichaean consider himself as having been thrown into an evil world. So that's what this religion they think. Where he is by nature a stranger, belonging to a race, genos, of the chosen, of the resolute, of superior beings, hypercosmos, cosmics. If he feels out of his element, in exile in this world, to use the expression of Serge Houghton in the book The Gnostics, it is because the Manichaean, being a Gnostic, feels within himself the acute nostalgia for his place of origin from which he has fallen. You don't come from here, your beginnings are not from here, your place is the place of life. Manes died leaving behind him, as in his cosmology, the image of a human being, a human soul, hungering after purity, knowledge, and liberty. Even if his message has seemed engulfed by a wave which carries off mankind towards materialism and the world of darkness. So apparently they want to preach the world of materialism is the world of darkness. And with the programs coming out of the United Nations, Sustainability, Biodiversity, Agenda 21, the transgenderism, gay genderism, pansexualism, multi-bisexualism, and everything else, they want to inhibit people from having children. They say because we create babies and we allow souls to enter the babies, and hence they become imprisoned souls. Oh my. Makes sense? Christianity and Gnostics. We have already defined Gnostic in its traditional aspect, noting that it was the aspiring to a higher knowledge. That's what all these initiates do in all these Freemasonic Illuminati societies, lodges, temples, and secret that you aren't allowed to go into, or I. Having studied the early Gnostics with the great tradition, citing Brahmanism and stopping momentarily to examine the doctrine of Zoroaster, who gave birth to Manichaean synthesis, we arrive at Gnostic properly named, a product of Greek thought and singularity Pythagorean. We shall see how this Gnostic penetrated to the center of Christianity, along with the old neo-pagan substratum, and was finally snuffed out by the dogmatism of the emerging church. Greek philosophy, we tend to forget today, fulfilled the function of popularizing esoteric doctrine, witchcraft and magic, secrets. The thinkers of antiquity, who were also sages, felt the need for two doctrines, one public and one secret. So what they teach we the people is not what they believe or teach themselves. If ancient Greece produced physicians like Thales and legislators like Solon, great people, and Draco, it also produced the first-class initiate, Pythagoras. So we have Zoroaster, we have Manes, and now we have another prophet, Pythagoras. Somebody who becomes initiated and illumined into some other worldly view. where apparently they can learn secrets that they have to keep from we the profane, or as the Zionist Talmudic Jews call us, Goyim cattle, or H.G. Wells, who wrote a book, The New World Order, and The Time Machine, and many other things, calls us animals not to be trusted. These elitists think that they're better than us. He never wrote down his secret doctrine, save in esoteric signs and disguised in an elaborate symbolism. His doctrine is the first synthesis, built around a central theory. We find therein the hidden doctrine of Egypt, illuminated and simplified by Greek genius. So, you know, this kind of makes sense why they're having all the countries in the Middle East overthrown and murdering all the people. They want to bring about some new reality. Least we forget, if you go look in the Bible now, if they're using some kind of high-tech time portals, it doesn't say the lion laid down with the lamb, it says the wolf laid down with the lamb. Could they have actually pulled that off, went back in time and changed that? And in Luke it says you put your money in a bank and you don't do something with your stuff. When did they use the word stuff, S-T-U-F-F, or banks back in Jesus' time? They didn't. Something weird is going on, or all that stuff on the internet's just complete fakery. But I went and checked my Bible, and sure enough, it says wolf. But all the pictures you go look online show a lion and a lamb. So somehow, if they did manage to perform some kind of magic or time portal stuff, some paradigm shift, it affected the written text, but it didn't affect the pictures. I know, it's crazy. I'll agree with anybody who says it's crazy. It's crazy. This stuff's crazy. Look at the murdering and mayhem. The secret lodges on every corner all over the world. Stuff going on right now. If they crash the dollar or the stock market, it's because they intend to do it. Whatever they're going to bring about. You have to have your faith in God. 100%. Because they're afraid if you have your faith in God 100%. They lose their power over us. That's not a religious statement. Seems to me a scientific fact. If you look at the evidence. In particular, the connection between Hermes, Trismegistus, is striking. The law of mystery once more hides ultimate truth. And I'm sure I said that word wrong. Trismegistus. T-R-I-S-M-E-G-I-S-T-U-S. First name Hermes. The law of mystery once more hides ultimate truth. And absolute knowledge can be revealed only to the initiate. That's what it says here. One cannot help but compare the principle of Pythagoras with the sun of the ancient Egyptians, when the prophet of the solar religion, worshipping the sun, solar religion, the high priest of Amun-Ra, unveiled the secret knowledge to the new initiate from the top of the temple of Thebes. The latter, recalling the passages of the Book of the Dead, acceded to knowledge sustained by a vision of the 3 pyramids and the stars. So apparently the 3 pyramids in Egypt, if you get up early in the morning on a certain day, it aligns right up with Orion's belt, which is 3 stars. So cosmology, the religion of the stars, astrology. The zodiac. And if a corner of Isis's veil, Isis, the wife of Osiris, father of Horus, whose eye is on the U.S. $1 bill, and if a corner of Isis's veil had been lifted for a moment, he could nevertheless experience the satisfaction of having glimpsed the supreme mysteries. Moreover, once the initiation was finished, he became a priest of Osiris a guardian of the sublime knowledge. So are all these initiates worldwide, whatever cult, lodge, temple, are they priests of Osiris? He saw Cambyses at the head of the Persian armies invade Egypt, sack the sacred temple of Memphis, this is Pythagoras, and Thebes, and destroy the temple of Ammon. But Pythagoras' suffering was not at an end. He was interned by Cambyses in Babylon, so he was imprisoned. And at that time, the symbol of the Hebrew prophets and the assimilation of the peoples by the Asian despots. So he was at that time a symbol of the Hebrew prophets and assimilation of the peoples by Asian despots. These trials taught Pythagoras that all religions were rays of the same truth. He held the key, the synthesis of all these doctrines of esoteric knowledge. Secret knowledge. The experience he had acquired showed him a humanity threatened by Asia because of the ignorance of its priests, because of the doctrine attitudes of its scholars, and because of the chaos in its democracies. Well, remember, they rule our democracies now. They're causing the chaos. And they do want to promote a one-world religion. Apparently, they're going to be in charge, and everybody else is a goyim, cattle, or profane, or an animal not to be trusted and needs to be microchipped. They special, we not special. So they think. And Jesus was preaching, treat others how you want to be treated. So apparently Jesus thinks we're all special. And if we believe in him, we get saved from some coming tribulation and some final judgment in the end. You don't have to be a genius to make a decision on that one. This pansexualism, transgenderism. Saw one video over the weekend where two brothers had worked to become two sisters. Both of them turned into women somehow with today's medical technologies. Crazy? And most of us can't afford health and medical insurance. Having managed to make his way back to Greece, Pythagoras had long discussions with the Hellenic priest. He told them of his Egyptian initiation. That would be there where the pyramids are and the Sphinx. And of the mysteries of Osiris. And he spoke to them about Babylonian, that would be Iraq, occultism. Remember when the U.S. military went into Iraq recently, after 9/11, immediately they went to the museums and confiscated all the ancient artifacts. Why? They're searching for secrets. It was only after he had established some inspired Pythonius and had made Delphi a living center of spiritual action that he left for Greater Greece and Crotona, where he would die with 30 of his disciples. But he had achieved his goal. The Pythagorean school would last 2 centuries more, and his teachings would come down to us through his disciples. The chain of the great initiates, so now you know what they're teaching in these lodges, these Freemasons, Illuminati. The chain of the great initiates, Rosicrucians, did not break with the disappearance of Pythagoras. The Athenian Plato carried on his thought. Through the Greek Agrestas, Plato was able to find a manuscript Pythagoras. The Timonius of Plato is in this sense an authentic, condensed version of Pythagorean cosmology. I think I have a copy of that, Plato's Timonius, Timaeus. I'll have to read it. So it has a condensed version of Pythagorean cosmology. Cosmology is the religion of the stars, the zodiac, astrology, etc. some kind of religion with the different signs in the constellations, Aquarius, Pisces. By creating a sanctuary for philosophy, the Tamanius opened an antechamber to high initiation. This is why the Academy of Athens, founded by Plato, continued in the great school of Alexandria, whose principal representative was Plotinus. School of Alexandria, Library of Alexandria. So maybe this is why the Christian church from Rome wanted to destroy all the written material. A Neoplatonist who took up the pagan tradition against his Enods, his spiritual Hera and successor, Iambius, 4th century, tied in his Mysteries of Egypt to perpetrate the esoteric tradition of the priests of Ammon, but his efforts were overwhelmed by Christianity. This explains why, in order to combat the influence of the church, the Gnostics sought refuge in its very bosom. So they infiltrated the Catholic Church to destroy it. This brings us to the Christian Gnostics, or simply Gnostics, Gnosticism. We can now better understand the doctrinal effects of the church from the 2nd century onward to rid itself from this subverting influence which attracted all the lofty minds of the Christian community. So all this secret esotericism, secret knowledge, witchcraft, the elites were attracted to of the church. So it was easy to invade the church, take it over. The specialists on Christian Gnostics distinguish in it two main branches: Syrian Gnostics or Alexandrian Gnostics. In the first, the main representatives were Simon the Magician, Saturn Uranus, and the Ophites. In the second, we find the Basilides, the Valentinius, and his disciples, Carpocrates, and the Docites. I'm probably saying these names horribly wrong. There is no question that this movement constituted a considerable danger to the church. It threatened to divide it into numerous sects or chapels which would have eluded the control of the priesthood. Lest we forget, the current Pope, Francis, had released last year a video to all the other world church leaders that there's no longer a reason for us to be separated. We should all reunite. So does that mean that the Catholic Church, has been taken over by these Gnostics who worship knowledge and think that's the way to salvation? Remember, it was the snake who gave Eve the apple, which was from the tree of knowledge. And when she ate the apple, of course, she saw she was naked. Her and Adam put on some clothes. So they found out the knowledge. And then they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and some cherubs, some angels with wings, were put at the gates, so they couldn't eat of the tree of life. So it is said in Genesis, in the Bible, the way I understand it. Still, the Gnostics were lofty minds. These men brought with them something which experience would eventually bring, though partially, to the church: a cosmology, a philosophy of Christianity, as well as the determining of its relationship to paganism and to Judaism. In a word, Gnostics brought to the church a more profound understanding of its faith. And of course we know there's a new logo going on, Faith No More. Billboards popping up saying freedom from religion and promotion of a decadent society of all kinds of perverted sexual references. I mean, men, I guess, wanting to act like women. Bizarre. Everywhere. And not because they were born that way or some kind of mental defect. It's just bizarre. I could use worse words, but I'll reframe. But this sophistication of the ecclesiastical movement was to hasten its demise. Since this philosophy had replaced revelation, it furnished the church with the needed pretext for condemning this attempt by paganism to live under the church's roof. So we know right now paganism, a liberty of thinking and no rules like Aleister Crowley, is trying to destroy Christianity. In relation to Christianity, Gnostics seek to find its level on a lofty plane. Gnostics, therefore, do not aim at denying the significance of Christ. As an example, they see in him a divine creature, devoid of a fleshy existence, that one can call perfect, or more simply, they see a man endowed with great spiritual vigor, intuition, and wisdom. The Gnosticism of the 2nd century, known to us through Simon the Magician, which developed in Syria, seems strongly marked by Hebrew and Eastern influences. So this Gnosticism, and we know that the Freemasons and all the different lodges, like Rosicrucians, seem to be a derivative of the Hebrew religion, the Jewish religion, King Solomon's Temple. This is all in the books that I've gone over, the Blue Lodge Handbook, etc. If you took the Jewish influences out of the material of all these organizations like the Freemasons, Illuminati, you wouldn't have any information. And I'm not making this up on my own. I've read this and I analyzed it, and that's what I think. So these people who in secret created these Freemasonic lodges all over the world, it's almost like a secret quiet army, because they're swearing to threat of death to obey the master and not divulge the secrets. All right, continue on. It's going to get crazier, if it could be. So anyways, the rejection of the Old Testament, of the law of Moses, so they want to reject Moses' 10 Commandments, and his dialogue, morality, cannot in such an ethnic take precedence over the wisdom born of knowledge. So they're saying this worship of knowledge is higher than worshiping God as I know it, Jesus, and believing in the 10 Commandments and the teachings of Jesus. Moral law cannot in such take precedence over the wisdom born of knowledge. So I suppose if we see a male dog humping, having sex with another male dog, which has been quoted, then we can quote, men can do the same thing to men, because that's the way animals are born, if we're supposed to be animals. Not that we're supposed to believe the Bible, and men should not lie with men, as it is said. So they want us to believe in this wisdom born of knowledge. Remember, Adam and Eve with the apple from the snake, the serpent, which opened her eyes, and him and her found out they were naked and quickly clothed. And then when God came walking in the garden, he said, "Where are you, Adam, Eve?" And they were hidden in the bushes. He goes, "Why are you hiding in the bushes?" And they said, "Well, we're naked." He goes, "Well, who told you you were naked? Did you eat the apple, the tree of knowledge?" Just saying, we've got to get two sides of this story here, this side and the other side. We have to ponder all of it. As we have suggested, there is a continuity between mystical pagans and Christian Gnostics. One has only to consider the common usage of certain symbols, of which the main ones are the cup and the book volume, which transmit the revelation. However, the Christian Gnostics of the Syrian branch remains full of Orientalism, full of Orientalism, peculiar to the Hebraic tradition. So the Hebrews, the Jews, seem to have a similar tradition as the Orients in the multi-god religion, theory, however I can say it and spit it out. Particular to the Hebraic tradition and more generally to the Semitic religions. Its manifestations are based on the mother cult or feminine principle, men wanting to be women. I saw one of those parades in LA and one woman held the sign, Dykes Rule. I'm thinking to myself, how crazy is this going to get? I suspect it's going to get crazier. Dykes Rule. And what did that other one I quoted I saw last year? One in a gay parade, one guy held a big sign that says, I bet hell is fabulous. Right. Hell is fabulous. I don't want to go there. And I don't wish anybody to go there. Maybe some of the political leaders we have now, but then again the Bible says to forgive people. So I'll refrain from thinking thoughts of sending them to Hades. Its manifestations are based on the mother cult of feminine principle, the Gospel of Eve, and the Pistis Sophia. In particular, the only Gnostic writing, which has come down to us in its entirety, bear the imprint of Hebraic, Hebrews, Jewish influence, and increase the secondary entities, the ancestors of the multiple demons of the Kabbalah. It says right here, demons of the Kabbalah. People don't know what to believe. The attitude towards sexuality is radically opposed to the Jewish and Christian ethic and commands that the Gnostic conception of things be adhered to. So here they're saying they are radically opposed to the Christian ethic. Radically opposed to morality, the Christian ethic. Get it? Got it? It's funny what you find in these books. Like Marcion, almost all condemn sexual relations leading to procreation, having babies, because this imprisons new souls in matter. Again, that's what it says here. I don't want anybody to believe me. Maybe it makes some sense of why they're trying to create this, and they're overwhelmingly focus on overpopulation. It's all a facade, a lie. Sustainability, biodiversity. They want to stop humans from being born because it imprisons new souls in matter. In practice, this attitude allows for certain mitigating circumstances. While the Gnostics totally reject social relations for the initiate, they allow the marriage of the ordinary laity, who can yield on this principle without falling under the sway of matter. This position makes sense only within the context of the certain outlook of the world. For the Gnostics, humanity has lost the key to knowing and had thus been plunged into chaos. The purpose of continence was obviously to impede the perpetuation of the realm of darkness, so long as man had not found again the essence of his being and the original purity of his ancestors. Just the theory here. I'm more or less an advocate of reincarnating, that being here on earth is like a gigantic school, an opportunity to learn, to grow as a spiritual being. Does that make sense? Here we are. Why? Okay, so if that's the case, and I had lived a prior life, and I advance up, theoretically, if I learn anything, or of course I could descend. And apparently, according to my research in psychic research, the facts of psychic science, by the Psychic Research Society of England, Europe, and then later on the Psychic Research Society of America from 1840 to 1940, when they were doing seances and all kinds of other spiritualists, communicating with the other side to people who had died, and people who were not very nice people did not say very nice things about being on the other side. They said it was horrible. It was bad. But the people who were very good people, giving to others, said the other side was just so unbelievably fantastic. They wish they could come back into this material world to tell people it's so fantastic. So, if you do wind up in a lesser place, do you get another opportunity to be reborn and learn your lesson so you can get out of that lesser place and move up? Just that's my theory, and I'm no prophet. I'm just reading books and gathering some information. It may not necessarily be a good Christian teaching, but then again, the Bible I grew up with was the King James Version, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, the King of England, the ones we fought with for independence, and now has the King and Queen who apparently are into the reptilian Illuminati Knights of Malta symbols they wear and all kinds of other stuff you can research. Who are they to make an edition of the Bible when they barely could understand proper Hebrew language? So I question, some people say, well, you can't deny the Holy Word. I'm going, wait a minute, there's 1,000 versions of the Bible. Which one am I supposed to believe? Are you going to tell me all 1,000 are exactly correct, even though they're different? Just me thinking, with my God-given brain seeking the truth. So, and when I said all that for a reason, because of what's coming up next in this book. While the Gnostics totally reject sexual relations for the initiate, they allow marriage for the ordinary laity, the people. For the Gnostics, humanity had lost the key to knowing, and had thus been plunged into chaos. The purpose of continence was obviously to impede the perpetration of the realm of darkness, so long as man has not found again the essence of his being and the original purity of his ancestors. Similarly, in the Luciferian Gnosis, especially among the Ophates and the Pirates, one finds a reminiscent of primordial knowledge. The serpent of the Bible is no longer considered as a symbol of evil. Remember we went over that Ankh, or that Tau, or the Anuta Krasta, whatever, the pictures I showed? They worship the serpent. It says it here, and in other books, and we've seen the symbols. The serpent of the Bible is no longer considered as a symbol of evil, but as a messenger of the God of Light, or Logos. We see the God of Light and Logos in Helena Blavatsky's material, Albert Pike's material, all this stuff on the Mystery School of Babylon, the religion of cosmology, the cosmos. While the demon Nerj has imprisoned Adam and Eve in a miserable world, Lucifer brought them the knowledge of good and evil. So they're saying God is actually the evil one. He imprisoned Adam and Eve in the miserable world. And of course the snake comes along and says, would you like this apple? And Eve says, well, God said not to eat that. And the snake says, well, I'm paraphrasing, of course. God's not telling you the truth. He doesn't want you to know what you can know. Eat the apple. Come on, come on. They do that today with beguilement and everything. Lead people down the path. Federal Reserve lowering interest rates, pumping money into society. People going crazy, buying stuff they really can't afford, and massing all this debt and assets. And then the Federal Reserve raises the interest rates and pulls the money back out. Now nobody can pay their bills, and the Federal Reserve just reaches out and takes everything on pennies on the dollar. beguilement, deception, manipulation. The serpent of the Bible is no longer considered a symbol of evil, but a messenger of the God of light or Logos. While the God that we all know has imprisoned Adam and Eve in a miserable world, Lucifer brought them the knowledge of good and evil, and Gnostics, which saves and makes divine. Gnostic thought, imitating the form of the serpent, is not rectangular but circular. It goes from God to God, through the world issued from him, from the spirit to the spirit, by the way of matter, and from life to life by way of death. The one produces the whole, and the whole becomes again a one. This is the New Age teaching. People need to wake up. That is the meaning of the ancient symbol of the serpent biting its tail. We've all seen that. That's a Freemasonic symbol, Rosicrucian. They got a snake, a round symbol, eating its tail. It is the wave which flows in itself of the German mystic Eckhart. So that's what Eckhart said. The Gnostic believes that man can discover the intimate secret of the unity of the world, provided he is willing to enter the wings of the cosmic theater and to mobilize the total efficacy of his spiritual powers in order to rain the veil of Maya. The Gnostic's faith does not suffice. And even for a Gnostic faith does not suffice, or even considered it to have no value in itself. So for the Gnostics, faith does not suffice. They don't want you to have faith. Rabbi Marvin Entelman, to eliminate the opate. In his book, Jewish men would have their neighbor come over and have sex with their wife. So he would watch another man have sex with his wife. Apparently, some ritual, satanic, and he would gain superior knowledge. What kind of thinking is this? It's obviously the opposite of the Ten Commandments, and the opposite of God, and the opposite of Jesus' teaching, and the opposite of a lot of religious teachings all over the world. You don't get your neighbor to come over and do your wife while you watch and hope to get some favor from some satanic being, demon, God, Lucifer, whatever. I've gone over that in Rabbi Marvin Entelman's books. Watch those videos. And that's why I make these videos, because I really don't have the energy to explain this conversation, what I learned, to one person at a time. I was doing that in the beginning, and I just couldn't do it. So I thought I'll make videos and have my conversation, which you don't have to believe, but it is a conversation. You can read the book and make of it what you will when you read the words. But we all have to realize there appears to be forces ruling our world, the governments, the United Nations, that are deceiving us, and it includes now the churches and everything. Remember, this is the backbone of what brought Nazism into power. That's why I'm reading it. The Occult and the Third Reich. There's more focusing on the Nazis as we move along in this book. But I thought this particular chapter was a little bit enlightening. Little play on words there. Seeking the truth, I don't think, is a detrimental thing to your soul. Just me. Through the scheme of myths is admittedly tangled, though the scheme of myths is admittedly tangled, one discerns a line of continuous thought, which stands out clearly in the most elaborate manifestation of the Gnostics, the Babylonian philosophy. We note that the Babylonian outlook was later taken up by the modern German philosophy, particularly of the Thule Society, which counted among its members Rosenberg and Dietrich Eckhart, principal initiator of Adolf Hitler. That alone should give some idea of the importance of this school. To Basilides, chaos is the work of Demiurge, God, I guess, a creature who pretends to imitate God. So apparently this creature who pretends to be God sent Jesus, if I am reading what they're saying here, to teach the rest of us that treat others how you want to be treated. I guess it's some kind of evil thing to teach. But by his action, God animates matter, which explains the intimate association of the two principles, light and darkness, within the material world. Man, through the Spirit which illuminates his soul, is possessor of light and can attain knowledge if he does not give into the world of darkness, which is also in and around him due to the reign of material degeneration, and the return to chaos, and the corruption of the blood, and the triumph of quality over the aristocratic principle. So they want us to return to chaos, primordial knowledge. More like Neanderthal man or native tribes running around half naked with spears and axes and killing each other is more primordial. Like George Bush Sr. said, out of chaos and anarchy will come the New World Order. Remember the movie Hunger Games, Divergent, and so many more. They're telling us what they want. They want liberty. They want to be able to do whatever they want to be able to do. Gather a few buddies together and get their spears and axes and invade your neighborhood and rape the women and take everything you have, maybe. Man, through the Spirit which illuminates his soul, is possessor of light and can attain knowledge if he does not give in to the world of darkness, which is also in and around him due to the reign of material degeneration. So this material world to them is bad, and the return to chaos, in the corruption of the blood, and the triumph of quality over the aristocratical principle. If I'm interpreting this wrong, there's a comment section below. Likewise, in the human order, certain races made up of the elite are closer to the divine spirit than others. That's what it says here. Certain races of the elite are closer to the divine spirit than others. Preeminent among these races are the white race, which is the crowning achievement of creative thought. It will be given to it to master matter and to harness the cosmos, while remaining faithful to the principle of purity which is within it. Wasn't Hitler into a pure race? For the Gnostics, and in particular Basilides, every living evolution consists of a differentiation and a separation, of a sorting out of material substances originally mixed together. For the Gnostics, the spiritual world is an archetype which takes its origin in the material world, but moves off increasingly toward the infinite and immaterial, according to the otherwise meaningless expression, what is high is like what is low. That's the old saying, what is above as below. Thus, Basilides see the world as an organized and hierarchy whole, where matter is not radically separated from spirit. So they want to gain the powers of the spiritual realm, but of course they want to keep that knowledge from the rest of us. On high reigns the Spirit, who is the Logos, divine thought which takes consciousness of itself. Below extends the Phuma, which is an unconscious thought by itself, but of purely spiritual essence, and of the ether, a part different only in degree from the soul of the material world. The Phuma is representative as the soul of the world encircled by the earthly universe. Christianity gave it the name of the Holy Spirit. According to Greek philosophical thought, the terminology of Epidotus, there is no birth for any mortal being, nor any more than three there exist an end which would be death. So they're saying there's no birth or death for mortal beings. Everything is simply a mixture and an exchange of elements. Birth is a term invented by men. The phone ringeth. So birth is a term invented by men. They don't teach that to the citizens who are being beguiled and deceived. When elements combine and come to light, whether among men, wild beasts, plants, and birds, they call that birth. When elements separate, they speak of a hapless death. Thus, substances begin to be organized according to purely mechanical laws appropriate to their respective importance. Spirit, which for Basilides is material and made up of tiny atoms. I've said that all along. If you get an electron microscope and zoom in on your skin or even a piece of steel, zoom, 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 you're going to see moving atoms and molecules. So we all know that. Rises and hastens the return to its principle. The fuma, which is already a more opaque matter, extends like an outside envelope around the world. The ether rises and extends under the fuma. So I guess they're calling this fuma the ether. All that exists. After this, there is the air, which fills the next region. Up to this point, there is nothing but a purely physical process. But since each of these elements contains an elementary spirit, and the scientific cosmology becomes a mythico-religious cosmology, thus Gnostic reconciles, in a vision not lacking of grandeur, that which modern science has sought to separate. Contrary to the enemies of Gnostics, who present it as a doctrine of death and annihilation, have claimed. But the evolution of the world is not done. The last part of the cosmic spirit must rise towards the universal spirit. Only then will harmony be reestablished. Let's read that again. But the evolution of the world is not done. The last part of the cosmic spirit must rise towards the universal spirit. So if they think we're all one, and they want us to, and they think the material world is evil and we're imprisoned, and they want us all to return to the universal spirit, would they nuke the planet to have all the people leave their bodies? Just adding 2 and 2 here. Only then will harmony be reestablished, and will the world have found its fulfillment in a normal ordering of things. Spirit, soul, and body. It is a question of mutual interpretation, in the same way as the body, the soul, and the spirit of man converge in an organic oneness. The business of salvation is to enlighten men to their true nature and to all creation as God has wished but had not realized. To all creation as God had wished but had not been realized. I don't think God makes mistakes. Once again, it is Gnostics which is capable of saving man, and not blind faith. So they don't want us to have blind faith. They don't want you to believe in Jesus, who said you will be saved and protected. It says in Proverbs, "He who seeks refuge in me, I shall be thy shield." So whenever I think I'm in a little bit of a turmoil or difficult situation, I picture myself in God's hand and say, it's over my head, help me out, and apparently things get worked out. What do you think? There's a comment section. I'm just reading a book and rendering my conversation. All of man's sins is in his desiring, which makes him want to rebel against nature. Remember, this is part of the background of Nazism, Hitler. This is some kind of religion, belief they have. The purity of the races. Every desire against nature whether pure essentialism or a wish to go beyond the limits imposed by man by nature and the concordant will of God. So limits imposed by the concordant will of God throws man back anew into a state of suffering. So I guess they want you to believe if God says don't do adultery and man shouldn't lie with man, then God is throwing you back into a state of suffering. What they're saying here. And of course this author is not promoting this or teaching us. This is the religion and beliefs he investigated. Let's not forget that. When I read these books, I'm not trying to say this stuff is what you should believe. I'm saying it's what they believe. Every immoderate desire must, therefore, be smothered by reason. Above all, sexual desire, at least for the elite, must be smothered, for sexual drive is the primary activity of man. Basilides, followed by Isidore, sees in love a non-moral desire, natural but not necessary, tearing man away from the most noble destination. You're not going to believe this. For them, nature, and therefore morality, consist in satisfying the sex drive outside of love. This viewpoint of Basilides finds some support in Plato. Concerning transmigration, the Timaeus names love mixed with pleasure and suffering as being among the irrational impulses which man must vanquish in order to escape the cycle of births. So they don't want you to reincarnate, and they don't want you to have sex with love, because they say that is bad. On this Basilidan outlook approximates the expressed by the German poet and philosopher Richard Delma, by the mystic Mr. Eckhart. For Basilide, there is a downward fall of the species, followed by an ascending evolution. So they think sex should just be for pleasure, not procreation. Because when you procreate, you create a baby which gets a soul, which gets imprisoned in the soul, and is a continuation of the suffering of mankind. And apparently, God's laws and the Ten Commandments continues on and enhances this suffering. Aleister Crowley, The Book of Law, Do As Thou Wilt. This philosophy has in fact many points in common with paganism, whose basic wisdom of Gnostics do not reject. The name of this god is like the Mithra of the pagans. Indeed, the numerical values of each letter of the name Abrax, meaning God, add up to the number of days of the year, that is to say, the time it takes for the earth to revolve around the sun. The word Mithra adds up to the same numerical value. The sun is Helios, and Mithras, Abrax, is the archon who contains within him in the oneness and the assemble of the solar cycle. Mithras and Helios are in relation to the Father, to the Son. Mithras is a mighty god. So I've got some pictures. Let's look at them. I just got these developed today. And as I said, I always do about 50 or 60, because to get the discount, you got to do 50 pictures. So I was thinking, well, who is this god Mithras? And I'm only going to do a few of these because in Helena Blavatsky's and Albert Pike's book also talks about Mithras. So we don't have to see all of these right now. I can finish this video. But apparently they got this picture of this guy killing a bull with a knife, and a dog and a snake trying to suck up the blood. Looks like a guy with the wings up there on the top, and another guy with the rays of sun or a halo around his head like the Statue of Liberty. And other little symbols which I need to do further investigation. It looks like they have some kind of torches. This guy's got some kind of ray coming from some being above. Again, I make the association from ancient monuments. And this one shows the Statue of Liberty. Apparently, the Statue of Liberty is not really a woman, it's Hermes. Transgenderism, a thing. Another thing with Mithras. Something about the killing the bull, the snake and the dog, and even a lobster in some of these trying to get at the blood. I'm sure as I review this, more information will be forthcoming. I see the little lobster down there, or a crab or something. They're all trying to get at the blood and the snake. And so if you go into Mithras, and Yahoo image site, you'll find these, and they also have a link to the site where these pictures came from, so you can read the information for yourself. Apparently, this is an ancient cult of Rome and that area, and they had these places where they did their worshipping or ceremonies or whatever. So they were serious about this, and apparently this is part of the background of the Mystery School of Babylon religion. They mention it enough. Their god Mithras. Cosmology. What does this stuff mean? You can see the stars in the background. The sun's rays. We'll look at some more of those and talk about it later as we continue to learn about this. Me. The name of this god is like the Mithra of the pagans. The time it takes for the earth to revolve around the sun, if you do numerology and add up the name of Mithra, that's what it adds up to. Alright, trying to finish this up. Familiar, there's only like one more page here. Familiar throng, whose domains extend like a storm around the vast atmosphere, which on all sides holds in store for man an infinite number of dangers. The band of spirits from the north sharpen against you in their trident-like tongues, that from the east dries out your lungs and feeds upon them. If it be the deserts of the south, which send them, they heap upon your head flame after flame, while the west vomits a swarm of bees, which at first refreshes and nourishes you, but ends up devouring all about you, your fields and your harvest. Inclined to do damage, they gladly listen to your outcry. They even obey you because they love to trick you. They announce themselves as envoys of heaven, and when they lie, it is with an angelic voice. What? So these creatures love to see you suffer. moving on here. Gets kind of a little crazier. Like Hildegard, Goethe draws from a common source. The Gnostic Weltanschauung, in which all the entities who rise up against God and man, evil angels, spirits of the spheres, and of the stars and wind, etc., hold such an important place. God can only intervene. Remember, this is what they're teaching. It's not what we should believe. God can only intervene in the cosmos from without by sending the thought of God, the Logos who will bring knowledge to men. Man cannot succeed in finding the way because he holds within himself the entire world. He is a microcosm of the very heart of the macrocosm. He is composed of matter, but he also contains the Logos, the divine spirit which reigns over the upper regions of the cosmos. Through his efforts, man raises himself from earth to the moon by crossing the hostile realm of the demons, the ionosphere which sends back wavelengths towards the earth. Faced with the danger posed by this resurgence, particularly noticeable in Basilids, of neo-paganism, the Church reacted with brutality. At the Council of Nicene in 325, that's when Rome embraced Christianity and they negotiated some kind of religion with the pagans. They mixed everything together to come up with what they have now at Rome, which was all an appeasement, in my opinion, to the people. They spoiled Christianity, which was the teaching of Jesus, which said, treat others how you want to be treated. And Jesus supported Moses' 10 Commandments. But the opposite of that would be Aleister Crowley, and apparently all the Freemasonic Illuminati, secret doctrine, morals and dogma, Rosicrucian, Zionist Jesuits, and all the brotherhoods and cults and witchcraft all over the world, that they swear in secret, threat of death, not to divulge to the rest of us. Gnostics in its different schools was condemned as a whole. As Liesengang has pointed out, Gnostics belonged to the spiritual atmosphere of Greece. It was antiquity and its freedom. Starting to get hoarse here. Luckily I only got one more paragraph. Of thought which the bishops wanted to destroy. Offspring of Hellenic philosophy, the Gnostics denied their origin by clothing their doctrine in the Eastern garb, that would be the Orientalists, and the Hebrews, Eastern garb, an age-old custom. Modern science has reversed this relationship in looking for the principal moffats of Gnosticism in the Eastern religion. Abbe Berbier, a specialist in the study of secret societies and their influence within the Church, understood well the Gnostic phenomenon when he wrote, "The role of the Gnostic Church is to preach a doctrine which is that of the superior human race, which has not been corrupted by the ideas of the Semento-Conchlithic races, and which follows most faithfully the teachings of Christ the Savior." So the Gnostic Church is to preach a doctrine which is superior to that of the human race, which has not been corrupted by those faithfully following of Christ and the Savior. So they say Jesus' teachings corrupted the humanity. If I'm reading this right, the role of the Gnostic Church is to preach a doctrine which is that of superior human race. Okay, that's their doctrine, is a doctrine of a superior human race, which has not been corrupted by the ideas of the Semito-Catholic races, which follow the most faithfully the teachings of Christ the Savior. Get it? Got it? Having appeared in the 2nd century of our era, Christian Gnosticism was laid under the interdict at the same time as the Neoplatonic schools was subsequently to find its strongest expression in Carthuism during the 12th and 13th centuries. Now, this was the religion embraced by Hitler. Hitler was into occultism. Occultism equals witchcraft to me, Illuminati, sacrificing human beings. Let's make no mistake. The link between this renewal and Nazism is certain. That's what it says here, page 88. If Gnostics has been able to develop and perpetuate itself like an underground stream, it is because there existed and still exist power stations, temples where knowledge is kept and from which the orders go out. So like the top of the pyramid, there's some central organization dispersing information to all the thousands of mystery school organizations, whether they be called Zionism, Jesuits, Brotherhoods, Club of Rome, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Witchcraft Covens, occultists, people who are going to yoga and not knowing that they are being indoctrinated, and all these other New Age teachings which control the United Nations, and part of the Theosophist Society, Albert Pike Morals and Dogma, the initiation of aspirants who want to aspire. And so what's the next chapter? The centers of initiation. Wow. How about one more look at a couple of pictures? All I looked up was Mithras, and I found these pictures. Here's one that was interesting. They really are advocating this New Age religion, cosmology, astrology. Horus, born on December 25th. That's the guy with the eye on the US dollar bill, the son of Isis and Osiris. Born of a virgin, star of the east, adorned by 3 kings, teacher at 12, and baptized ministry at 30, 12 disciples. That's what it says there. Mithra, born of a virgin, born on December 25th, 12 disciples, performed miracles, dead for 3 days, resurrected. That's what it says, Mithras. Dionysus, born of a virgin, born on December 25th, performed miracles, King of Kings, Alpha and Omega, resurrected, Greece, 500 BC. Attis, born of a virgin, born on December 25th, crucified, dead for 3 days, Greece, 1200 BC. Horus was 3000 BC. Myrtha was 1200 BC. Krishna, born of a virgin, star in the east, performed miracles, and resurrected, 900 BC. Jesus Christ, born of a virgin, born on December 25th, star of the east, 12 disciples, performed miracles, dead for 3 days, resurrected. So you think they're trying to push this New Age one world religion that says that sex shouldn't be for procreation, and it only propagates the human race, making babies be born, which imprisons souls? Who are these entities? Ooh. The serpents. Something's a bit odd. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.